Alright, so if you don't understand this chapter, let me explain it to you, because it does seem a little complicated, and a lot of people have been reading thus far in forums saying they don't understand what the hell this chapter meant and what was it about. So basically this chapter, for the most part, was explaining how Urahara can use his techniques to basically heal people from the holification, and he clearly explains it can never be reversed, which is why, you know, obviously years later the Visors still have those hollow masks and whatnot, and ultimately it just explains how Isshin basically became into this like human-esque type of body. So basically after 100 years of him, you know, with his research, Urahara came up with a way to counter holification. Now with Shinigamis, it's different from what he has to do with Misaki, because with Shinigamis, all he needs to do is something to counter it with the Quincy arrow he has, and basically that can already just stop it, negate it, and they can like live on, because they'll I guess escape the soul destruction or soul suicide, something like that. But with Misaki, since she's a human, not only does he have to stop the soul suicide or soul destruction, whatever, he also has to keep her alive, and that's where Isshin has to go into this body and tie himself with her, because basically since he's when he goes into that body, he's basically not only a Shinigami, he's basically like in this human container that contains his powers, and ultimately will allow her to stay alive as well. And basically what that means is, the way Isshin gets his powers later on is, once that, because since they're tied by souls, I guess you could say, once Misaki dies, Isshin is allowed to slowly, I guess, gain his powers back and ultimately become a Shinigami once more. This explains everything of how Isshin, you know, kind of was out of Soul Society, how he lost his powers, everything. And honestly, Kubo did a very good job of keeping it original, keeping it unpredictable, and, you know, doing something a little bit different. I was surprised, because I had my theory, you know, that he was going to use Final Getsuga Tensho and ultimately become, you know, like rendered useless, so to speak. And I'm still puzzled as to if that will happen at this point, because it's a possibility before they get into the operation he might do something like that, because, you know, he did explain to Ichigo during the eyes and stuff that, you know, he had to use some sort of Final Getsuga Tensho when he was younger or whatever, but we haven't seen him use that yet, and ultimately he would have been rendered useless. So I'm kind of wondering exactly what's going to happen. Is there going to be like a little, before the operation gets started, is there going to be some sort of thing? But it seemed as though it already went in there, because it looked as if it was like spiritually showing Isshin rescue Misaki, or Masaki. So ultimately, I guess that this is basically what happens, and maybe the Final Getsuga Tensho thing is going to be thrown out the window. I'm not exactly sure as far as that goes, but yeah, that's in a nutshell basically this chapter. For the most part, it was just explaining that. I think it was done very well. It was like, you know, because like I said, I couldn't predict it, and I didn't see anybody predict this for the most part. So very good on that part. And ultimately, it was just an explanation chapter, but it actually kept it interesting, because it would explain things prior. It wasn't just like out the blue. Explanation chapters can kind of be boring sometimes, but this actually explains something that I was just curious about, like, you know, how did he come up with a counter to the holification, you know, self-destruction and whatnot, and turning these people into hollows and everything. And it was done pretty well. It was enjoyable. It wasn't predictable. It wasn't something that, you know, anybody foresaw happening, and it was a good job there, honestly. It was kind of a little dramatic, and then it was kind of like funny when, you know, you had a Ryukin like, oh, you know, he's not gonna do it, and then he's like, shut up and do it for me. I was just laughing my ass off, like, that's it, really? He just whatever, screw Soul Society, I gotta do what I gotta do. I'm curious to see, is this where it all ends, his relationship with Soul Society and the Captain Commander and everything, because, like, if that's the case, what his last conversation with him was when the Captain Commander was kind of like scolding him for what he did. Just curious. And ultimately, yeah, this chapter, kind of enjoyed it. It explained some things. It wasn't the most groundbreaking or anything. And once again, I do say that this flashback can be over with already, because it's been going on for a bit. But ultimately, it did accomplish a lot of different things. You know, it explained how Ryukin met these people. It explained how Isshin got into this body, how Urahara, well, not how, but why Urahara can do this whole thing regarding the holification, how Isshin and Masaki got together. It really is explaining a lot of different things. Like right now, Isshin is looking real good for Masaki, because he rescued her. He's a knight in shining armor right now, so you definitely know they're going to hit it off. And I feel bad for Ryukin, because he ain't getting no booty after this. Honestly, I'm sorry, but it's all going to Isshin. He's the knight in shining armor, while Ryukin is standing there like, sorry, man, you know? And yeah, this chapter really, good shit. I don't know. It was enjoyable. It was an explanation. I give it in the 3.5 because it did some things that it needed to do and gave a last little bit of explanations, and it was honestly something different, something not not something that you can just call right away or anything like that. And I think that that's a lot more better than when it's like ultimately, oh, I saw this coming, whatever. Now, so we can get past this now. All the explanations that we needed to know. I think most of the Bleach secrets are out. There's still a few out there, of course. There's the Aizen's true motives. There's a couple different things out there, but some of the big ones, especially regarding Ichigo's past, Isshin's past, are finally cleared up. Everything makes perfect sense, and I'm glad Kubo did that. I'm glad Kubo really went in there and gave us what we needed to know, and now we can move forward. But I still don't understand how is this going to help Ichigo in the long run, as far as like activating his powers or whatever, so that he could heal Zangetsu. Because remember, this whole flashback is Ichigo getting explained by Isshin his true heritage, so that he can continue on and try to get his Zanpakuto fix and whatnot, his Bankai. So I don't understand how the story, it's giving him insight onto who he ultimately is. He's a Quincy and Shinigami and human and everything else in the book, but how is that going to necessarily help him? Still not sure. We got to get back to the present soon, which hopefully, I'm assuming this is the last one in this Everything But the Rain. This is like number 8, so I don't think we should get any more after this, hopefully. But yeah, that's really all my take on this chapter. Again, how is this supposed to help Ichigo in the long run, other than giving him knowledge of himself? Is this supposed to help him maybe use his Quincy powers to gain new abilities? Or, what's the case with that? Are we never going to see him use his, like, Bankai again? Is he going to start using Quincy powers or something? And also, do you think that Kubo did a good explanation with this? I think Kubo did a very good job of keeping it suspenseful. And, this flashback been going on a bit long, but it did what it needed to do, and ultimately that's the best thing. When it does what it needs to do without cutting short, and Kubo kept to the plan, he's keeping on explaining everything regardless of what, even if the rankings go low. I like that. I like when an author sticks to his goal, and ultimately it comes out like this. Very good, very good. Good shit, Kubo. But yeah, that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up if you can't wait to get back to the present, because I think we know everything we need to know as far as these two go, Isshin and Ichigo, and a long time coming, and it came out pretty good. So yeah, I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.